Alright guys, I'm at the cleaning table here out in my shop, and I've got the 1911 here. It's a Remington R1 that I've had for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years at least, that I got out and shot today. It's something of a GI style model, just your basic model. Doesn't have the extended beaver tail or anything like that on it, which you can see from my hand there, and eats me up a little bit. I get some hammer bite from it. We're gonna take this thing apart and do some cleaning on it, and just thought I'd make a video while I do that. First thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and take these grips off, because there's obviously metal up underneath the grips, up underneath the stocks here. So I wanna get some protectant on there, some lubricant. Not necessarily because it's dirty back behind there, but every time I clean them, I like to go ahead and do that and get some protection back there as well, because that's metal that could possibly rust as well back behind there. So I always like to do that. So I'll take these and stick them in my tray here so I don't lose them. Pop those grips off, and now we'll be able to clean under there as well. When I take a 1911 apart, I take the bushing apart first. Of course, let's just go ahead and verify that it is unloaded. Of course, I know it is. There's nothing in the chamber there. Obviously, the grips are off. You can see there's no magazine in there. What I like to do is take the bushing off first. I've seen some people who actually take the slide off the frame and then take the bushing and the slide apart separately, but I always start with the bushing. I've got a bushing wrench here. I've got a couple of different attachments for my cleaning rod here. One for the patches, which I've got a bunch of these patches. I really like these Birchwood Casey patches that have some texture to them. I think they do a really good job. I use Ballistol as my cleaner and lubricant. I switched over from the hops probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I really like the Ballistol. Of course, I first heard about it on Hickok 45 and thought I'd give it a try, because I was trying to go with something that was a little bit safer, that wasn't a petroleum product, because there are some issues with solvents and soaking through your skin supposedly and causing health problems. And if you shoot a lot like I do and clean a lot of guns and tend to get a lot of the stuff on you, which I do, it's just the way I am. You know, it was something that I kind of started wondering if it was something I needed to worry about. So I said, well, I'll just see if I can find something else, and Ballistol was available and works really well. I like it, and so I switched over to that and haven't looked back. So now let's start off by getting this bushing off. This one is really tight. Some of them I can do by hand, some of them I can't. This one is extremely tight though. Just use the bushing wrench on this one. There we go. Now that frees the slide up. We'll take it back to that point right there. Push our slide out, stop out. Now I've got the barrel, the slide and barrel assembly, and the frame separated. So now we'll take the recoil spring out. We'll flip this other side, and this pulls directly out. Take our bushing out. Then the barrel slides right out the front. And now I have all of this separated, and we can begin to start cleaning. The first thing I'll do is I'm going to take some Ballistol and I'm going to spray in this barrel. Kind of get a bunch in there so it can just kind of sit there and soak. And then I'll just start taking patches here, and I'm going to work on the frame first. I just spray some on one of these Birchwood Casey cleaning patches. And I just start rubbing it down and getting all of the carbon buildup off as I go. And I'll probably use several of these patches. I'm not stingy when it comes to these things. I'm very liberal in the use of ballistol as well. But I want to get some of the ballistol on everything, get all the carbon off of it, get it completely clean, and get some ballistol on every metal part, because this protects it. After it goes back in the safe, it'll keep it from rusting. Ballistol does an excellent job of that, I found. I can take this firearm out a year from now, if I haven't shot it again, got it out, and I can take it out of the safe, and there'll still be a film with ballistol on it. So we'll use the ballistol and try to clean as much as we can from around here and get all of these parts coated. I'm also going to clean inside the mag well. See a little bit of rusty color there. That's coming from inside the mag well. The inside there has got a little bit of a bluing to it, and that's often when you see that rust color, it's actually bluing loss, which is normal. It does happen. You can see the different colors on the slide and the frame. We've got two different grades of steel, more than likely, that blued differently. And though they looked exactly the same when they were new, you've got a patina that is formed on the frame that's not really on the slide, because the bluing loss has been different. This has retained more of the original bluing, and that bluing has degraded some over the years with the frame. It's not uncommon for that kind of thing to happen. We'll get this cleaned out in the bottom, and now we're going to deal with where a lot of the actual carbon built up in the frame here is, which is inside. Frame here actually has part of the feed ramp. For most 1911s, there are some who have the full feed ramp on the barrel, but this one doesn't. It's got like a small lip there, which is part of a feed ramp, and then the feed ramp's on the actual frame here. And so you can see a lot of black, a lot of gunk down in here that needs to be cleaned out. So we'll do that. Guys, I apologize. My camera ran out of memory and shut off on me, and I didn't realize it. And I'd finished the frame, and actually it started, was pretty good ways into the cleaning the slide before I realized it. But I was pretty much done with the frame, and when we ran out of memory. But it is clean now. I've got ballast all over everything with the frame. The metal is completely covered. So now moving on to the slide. As I said, I've pretty much cleaned all the carbon out of it. You're not going to see a lot now as I clean. There's still a little bit in there as I go through and get down into these crevices here. There's these slots here in the frame that the barrel lugs go into. They need to be cleaned out as well. I have not got around to that yet. We just need to make sure we get all of the carbon off of this slide. I really like this Remington R1. As you can see here in the slide, it does have the hammer, not the hammer, but the firing pin block on it here, which would make it similar to, say, a Colt Series 80. Obviously this isn't a Colt though, but it would be similar to what a Series 80 Colt would be, having the firing pin block on there. I really like this Remington. It has a really good trigger on it, an excellent trigger on this gun, despite being something of a Series 80 here. Often 1911 enthusiasts will talk about how the Series 80, those with the firing pin blocks, have terrible triggers compared to the Series 70, which don't have that. But this one has an extremely crisp trigger. It's a very good trigger. I actually have a Colt, and this Remington is far superior to the Colt. The Colt that I've got was a Series 80, but the trigger on it was actually not very good. It was not particularly crisp, and I took it to a local gunsmith, and he actually did a trigger job on it. And even after the trigger job, this Remington R1 still has a better trigger than the Colt does. I really enjoy shooting this this gun here, other than the hammer bite, and it gives me some terrible hammer bite, but otherwise I really enjoy this gun. It has a really good trigger. The only issue I had with this gun was that it did not feed cast bullets very well. It would feed them at first, but once the firearm got dirty, once the barrel got dirty, and possibly with heating up as well, it would start not feeding them properly, and we'd have malfunctions, failures to feed. And I took that to the gunsmith as well, and the chamber was a little too tight on it. And if you know anything about bullets, if you're a reloader like I am, then you know that cast bullets are slightly larger. They're 1/1000th larger than jacketed bullets are. When you buy jacketed bullets, they're .451. When you buy cast, they're .452, and that's pretty common across all the different calibers as well, that your cast are going to be 1/1000th larger than your jacketed. Same way with 357 Magnum. If you're loading 357 or 38 Special, the same caliber there, just different power levels. With the 357, if it's jacketed, it's 357. If it's cast, it's .358 usually. And so it was just enough difference, along with the buildup of carbon and everything else that was occurring, and that once I shot a little bit and it got dirty, it didn't want to feed the cast bullets any longer. So I took it to the gunsmith. He reamed it out slightly larger because he said it was a little tighter than it should have been. And now I don't have that problem anymore. It feeds reliably. It's a very nice 1911. I know Remington does not have the best reputation. Obviously, they had lots of issues and went out of business just recently as well. But from what I've heard, what I've seen, of all the problems they had, their 1911s were really not one of them. Their 1911s were very well made firearms, and I have to agree, the one that I have is an excellent firearm. So we're pretty much finished now with the slide, because I had done a lot of that off camera unknowingly, but we'll just make sure we get some of this ballistol on all the different surfaces, and make sure we get some in the slide rail here a little bit too, because it's also a lubricant as well as a protectant, as well as a cleaner. It pretty much does it all, and does a really good job at all of it. And now we are done with the slide, and we'll set that to the side now. Now I'm going to go ahead and just clean this bushing as well, since I see it right here and I can see all the carbon on it. Just go ahead and get that cleaned up as well. I've got my brass brush out here, which I really haven't used, and I often find I don't have to use it on my automatics, whether it be a 1911 or an M&P, Smith & Wesson, or a Glock, or whatever it might be. I find I don't really have to use the brush that much for automatics. They get dirty, but it's not the kind you have to scrub off so much. They usually come clean pretty easily, and having ballistol on them helps as well. That coating of ballistol really helps the carbon from really sticking to it. However, my revolvers, which are my favorite, I love revolvers, and I shoot them more often than I do my automatics. They do require a little bit more scrubbing. I use the brass brush for those quite a bit, especially the face of the cylinders. They get really dirty, and I also use some lead remover cloths on that to clean those cylinder faces. And up around the forcing cone as well, you get a lot of carbon buildup. And I usually scrub that quite a bit and then use the lead remover cloths on the stainless guns. I don't do that on the blued guns because the lead remover cloth will remove the bluing as well if you're not careful. So I just do a little light scrubbing with my blued guns, and I don't go into as much detail and put as much effort into trying to clean those off. It's not as noticeable with the blued guns. Obviously with the bluing, it kind of covers up those carbon rings and what have you, but I try to get as much off as I can without damaging the finish, because you can scrub the blue right off of them if you just scrub and scrub and scrub. So I try to be a little bit more careful with those with the finish. But with the stainless steel, I scrub them down really good, and then I get the rest of it off with a lead remover cloth. But now we're ready to clean this barrel, and I will get a brass bore brush here onto my cleaning rod, and I'll spray this one more time, and then we'll go through here. It looks like it's not quite long enough. There is an extension that I can use on it. If I can find my extension, that is. I think it's right here. The extension on there. And I've got several extensions there if I'm cleaning a rifle or cleaning something with even longer barrel, so that I can make sure I've got enough to get all the way through it. Now we're just going to scrub up in here. Hopefully this ballistol has loosened up the carbon that was in the barrel. You can just do some scrubbing here, and then we'll start running some patches through. That should be enough. I'll take the brass brush off. Put this attachment on to push the patches through. And for a 45, these squares here, I usually use two. One is just not quite big enough. It doesn't give you enough tension and really, kind of scrub the walls as you push it through. But I always spray a little more ballistol on it. We'll push those through, and you can see all of that carbon right there on it. I'll just go ahead and push it through the other side just to scrape off a little bit more. Couple more patches here. Douse them down with ballistol. I use a ton of ballistol. Very liberal with the ballistol. It gets all over me. One thing people say about ballistol is they don't like the smell. Well, I've used it for so long now and been covered in it so many times that I've grown quite accustomed to the smell and actually enjoy it now, surprisingly enough. There was a time when it took your breath away, but I like it quite a bit now. My wife, on the other hand, does not. She does not like the smell of it at all. I used to clean guns in the house before we moved to where we are now, where I had a shop, and so I would often clean them in the house, and she could not stand when I used ballistol in the house. But I like the smell. Tell her it's the smell of happiness. Because if I am using ballistol, that means I've been shooting guns. And if I've been shooting guns, I'm probably in a pretty good mood. So ballistol is the smell of happiness. Yeah, we are getting pretty close. You can run patches through these things for a long time before they ever come out without any carbon on them at all. And how much you want to do is up to you. Some people just run a bore snake through one time and they're done, and that just doesn't do it. I can run bore snakes through a gun and then take patches and run through, and they're still nasty. So I use bore snakes some on rifles, but on handguns they don't suffice, in my opinion. I like them to be a little cleaner than that. But we are getting to a level I think is pretty well sufficient here. There's not a lot of carbon. It's coming out now just a little bit. I use a lot of these patches too. I order these from Amazon. The only place I've never seen these in a store anywhere or anywhere. I ordered them from Amazon one time and liked them so much that what I do all the time now. I order these from Amazon. It's the only place I see them, and I really like these patches. And nothing I've ever used, whether it's cut up t-shirts or other types of patches or whatever, seems like they work as well as these. These really scrub that carbon. They've got a texture to them that works really well. And I really like them. We'll run one more through it just because I'm particular. Most people probably wouldn't put this much into it, but I'm going to call that good now. Once again, we need to make sure that this barrel's got ballast all around it. It pretty much does, but I'll just throw a little bit more on here. We'll make sure our linkage here is clean all around that. All right, that looks like that's pretty good now. The last thing is, now almost the last thing, is our recoil spring. I'm not even going to pull it out of that. I usually just take some ballast oil and I start spinning this thing here, spinning the guide rod and the spring until it runs it all the way across the patch with the ballast oil on it. So I get ballast oil on the spring as well. Clean it off of the carbon. And then I'll also plug here. I'll run it down in as well and get what I can out of it. And now, last of all, what I always do with my wood grips, ballast oil was originally designed by the German army, from what I understand, to not only be a firearm lubricant, protectant, and cleaner, but to also help protect the wood stocks on their rifles as well as the leather of their holsters. So it has a lot of uses. It's a really versatile cleaner and protectant, so I always go over the grips with the ballast oil as well. Both the front and the back. All right. Now it's time for me to try to reassemble this 1911. As I said, I'm not an expert. I've got a couple of 1911s right now, but I don't take them apart that much because I don't shoot them that often, not as often as I ought to, because, well, I love revolvers and I shoot my revolvers more than I do my 1911s. That's just the fact of the matter here. It's what I do, so. The recoil spring in here. Over to the right side because I had it on the wrong side there. All right, now to get it back onto the frame here. And to line it up where I can put this back in. And I just lost the plug out. Let's see. This is what I was talking about when I said I was not an expert at these things. Taking them apart is easy, but when I try to put them back together, it seems like I always have issues. Seems to line this thing up now. Got it now where it's lined up. Or maybe not. Try this one more time. I am having all kinds of trouble here. Not sure why. Looks like it's going through. There it goes. No, it's not wanting to go in. Try not to make any more idiot scratches on this thing than I already have, because I sure did put a really bad one on there when I first got it. There we go. Not sure why that was so hard today. All right, seems to be working now. After I struggled mightily putting that slide back on, that's the worst time I've had putting that slide on in a long time. Of course, it's when I'm making a video, so I can make myself look like I don't know what I'm doing, but that's all right. My wife don't think I know what I'm doing most of the time anyway, so everybody else in the world should probably think I'm an idiot too. I'm just joking. She don't think I'm an idiot, I'm sure. She might question my sanity sometimes. Yeah. Put this last one on now. Yeah, that's got her done. This 1911 Remington R1 is now clean and ready to go back in the safe. Hey guys, appreciate everybody dropping by and watching me clean my 1911 there. Sure did have a ball shooting it this afternoon, and wasn't too bad cleaning it. I enjoy cleaning guns for the most part, though did have a little bit of trouble putting that 1911 back together, but I'm not an expert in them. I don't shoot them as often as I should, so probably been on probably 6 months at least since I'd had that gun out and tore it apart. So not unexpected for me to struggle a little bit with it, but hopefully it was informative for anybody who's wanting to know how to clean one or wanting to know how somebody else cleans one. And there it is, Remington R1 1911. I just got clean, and I'm going to take her back to the house, and I'm going to put her in the safe where it can be with all its other little friends in there. So appreciate you stopping by, and God bless you, and catch you next time.